Hello, I'm Pam Hoffman, Everyday Spacer.
I'm Jeff Miller, 2049 Outfitters.
Everyday Spacer showing regular folks how to personally and directly participate in space exploration, science, and astronomy. Otherwise known as we show you how to navigate space. We're here Friday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Mountain Time, 11 p.m. Central, 12 midnight Eastern Time. We are broadcasting live from Thousand Oaks, California. Thanks so much for joining us. Tonight we actually have a guest with us. Heather Archuletta is our guest. So wonderful to have you here with us, Heather. And we will cover some new year. We'll have new nights. Our guest tonight, Heather, is from San Francisco, California. So she's basically just north of us. And she's going to tell us something about the NASA Space Flight Simulation, also known as Pillow Knot, the Apollo moon trees, and she has some incredible space maps she'll be sharing with us. So Heather, please tell us more.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, first of all. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of a delay from you, so I hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah, we're fine. You're good.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I worked at Johnson Space Center for many years doing what was called flight analog research. I was in the unit called the FARU, F-A-R-U, the Flight Analog Research Unit. And this particular research unit is a lot of different NASA scientists doing medical studies on the ground, and they seek ways to keep astronauts more healthy when they come home to Earth. And it's very, very expensive to do these kinds of studies in space, because you'd be asking astronauts on the space station and in the shuttles and everything to, be doing constant medical supervision, which they do to an extent, but they can't do continually day after day. So they recruit people to be what's called astronaut analogs, and you go through very rigorous screening and rigorous testing, and they use your data to compare that to astronauts. The most famous one, most people, I think, if you're part of the space community or you're a space tweep on Twitter, you heard about the 1 year mission, which was the Kelly twins, Scott Kelly and Mark Kelly. They kept one twin on the ground, put one twin in space for almost a year, and then compared their bone density, their plasma volume, their muscle mass, and things like that. And so I did the same kind of testing and acted as an analog on the ground.
That is so cool. And you said that you actually coined that phrase, pillow knot, and NASA uses it now.
Yeah, it actually started as back when I first started, and the very first year that I passed the astronaut physical and got into the program, I wanted to make sure that my family knew that, NASA wasn't killing me. And so I decided to put a blog online to sort of keep people updated on the things that I was doing day to day and what life was like in the quarantine facility. Because to my mom, this all sounded very, very, what is the government doing to you? And I'm like, it's really okay. We have to sign massive amounts of paperwork saying that, that we understand every test. They give us exhaustive descriptions that you understand every risk, but you can't get in unless you're very, very, very healthy, high bone scans, low blood pressure, very, exceptionally good health in every way. Screening is very tough. And so I decided to put a blog online, and at the time you could only fit a certain amount of characters into the .blogspot.com thing. And so my original one was Pillow Astronaut. That wouldn't fit. So I shortened it to Pillow Knot, and then that kind of got some press. They put me on Fox News. They put me on NBC to, recruit for the program. Later, they gave me a job marketing everything for them and recruiting more people into the program. Wow. And now not just NASA, but also the European Space Agency also uses the word pillow knot. So if if you Google it, you'll find all these mentions of it. But technically I copyright it, but I don't give them any hassle, I figure, yeah, the more the merrier. I want more people they especially are always desperate for women. They get more men than women who fill out the application.
That makes total sense because women are a little bit different and would react a little different to, what's happening up there. And so I guess one of my questions was going to be, can anyone be a mellonaut?
To an extent, there's 4 different levels of screening. The majority of people are ruled out by the first stage, which is the phone call, and they ask you questions about chronic conditions, medications, that kind of thing. You can't have any kind of, you can't even take herbal medications while you're in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty stringent once you're in the program. The second level of screening is blood tests, and if they find anything there, you can be ruled out. The third is very invasive, like they stick needles in your hands and feet and do dorsal vein tests. They test, some people actually have small amounts of muscle removed before and after. There's all different kinds of protocols. Like, I'm glad mine didn't actually include that because I didn't want to have any surgery. And they don't really come right out and tell you, hey, here's why you got in, or here's why anybody else was ruled out. Because of course, by law, they can only give you your own medical information. But talking amongst ourselves, and the first year I applied, they got in excess of 16,000 applications and 21 people got in.
Wow.
So it's intense. You have to cycle to exhaustion, run to exhaustion. You have to have significantly low blood pressure, and they test that every single day. So the third stage is more invasive testing plus bone scans. You have to have a very, very high bone density to do this, because their goal, of course, is to try to degrade that, like what happens to astronauts in orbit. And so you have to have strong bones going in, just in case you see any degradation of your, if you have any demineralization of your bones, so to make sure that you have it back. So we noticed, I'm sorry.
I wonder if there's kind of an age range. Can you be too old or too young to?
Yeah, the age range is, I think, 25 to 55. If you're a woman, you do have to be premenopause. You do have to still be menstruating. You cannot be a smoker. You cannot, like I said, have any chronic conditions. That rules out the majority of folks. And then the very, very last stage, right before you're admitted, they do a criminal background check and a pregnancy test. But to my knowledge, nobody has ever been ruled out for that last one. So.
Right. Okay. So just wanted to let you know we have quite a few people here joining us. Thanks so much.
Okay.
For being here, people. We've got Michael Taylor from Hong Kong. Seth Potter is actually local to us. David Renicky is in Australia. He says hi from us upside down in Australia. It sounds like David knows you. 7 weeks. Is that the length of the program?
7 weeks. That sounds like my first one. Yeah, I actually did 3. In fact, to this day, I think I'm the only quote unquote pillow nut who qualified 3 years in a row. I did 3 studies, and I did 1 per year. Yeah, let me see. I'm looking at the comments. I believe you gave up 7 weeks of your life by the NASA bed program. Yes. Prepare us for trips to Mars. That is the idea. Yes, indeed. At this point, we're the one thing that I learned most from this program was that we're nowhere near ready to go to Mars. A trip to Mars and back would be something like, at current propulsion technologies, about 500 days to get there, to do adequate sampling, build a habitat, come back home. You'd be crippled by the time that happened. My first microgravity simulation program, I was tilted head down -6 degrees for 54 days. And that put me in a wheelchair. When I first got up, your blood pressure goes crazy, your heart races. I fainted a couple of times. The first time I stepped on my feet after not using my legs for 54 days, it felt like someone was shoving knives into them. So, and that's how astronauts feel when they come home. Like, if you ever see like a capsule or a space shuttle land, and you see, they put them under blankets in those little chairs out in the middle of the field when the Soyuz tubs down. That's
Right.
what it feels like. You can't use your legs at all. I couldn't drive a car for almost a month because
Wow.
your balance goes all wonky, your vestibular system. And going back to what you said about differences between men and women, there's
Yeah.
no hard or fast facts. Everybody reacts a little bit differently. But in general, men tend to have more heart issues, heart enlargement, a drop in plasma volume. Women tend to have more balance and inner ear issues
Oh,
with the
interesting.
vestibular system. Yeah, just sort of across the board, they've noticed that. But that's why they desperately need more women, because they're still trying to figure out why.
We got some more questions. Let's post one from Seth. He
Okay.
says, professional or academic requirements such as STEM degree, military experience, medical doctor, etc. Go ahead, Heather. Let's see if we can help Seth with that.
Okay, you definitely don't need military experience or an MD. A STEM degree will definitely help you understand what's going on better. But either way, even if you don't necessarily know the medical ins and outs of bone density demineralization or absorptiometry or DEXA scans or things like that, trust me when I tell you, NASA absolutely loves to give you stacks and stacks of paperwork. They will acronym you to death, and there's no shortage of information. In fact, the 3 years that I spent in the program, and then after that, I spent 4 more years doing marketing and recruiting and events and press liaisoning for them. My God, that was like getting a degree. I feel like that was a degree in space science in a lot of ways. I learned so much about what it's going to take to go to Mars. And that's why I know, like when I hear Elon Musk say, oh, we're going to Mars in 2 years. Yeah, we're really, really not. It's not happening.
Got it. All right. So David came on with another question. What does NASA, etc., think is a good long-term flight crew mix? Women, men. That's a great question. Thanks so much, David.
That is, yeah. And actually, the only major simulation that has been done, unfortunately, was all men. And that was the Mars 500 that China and Russia got together to do. There was also a Colombian astronaut in there, Diego Rabina. And there were 3 Russians, 1 Frenchman, 1 Chinese astronaut, and the Colombian. They found out a lot about the psychology of isolation and crew selection and what it's going to take, when you're trapped in a tube traveling that distance. They definitely were prone to depression, sometimes aggression, isolation, as we're all kind of learning right now in the pandemic, is, it's very difficult. And, if you really think that you can handle Mars, but you can't handle not leaving your house for 2 weeks except to go to the grocery store, think hard about how tough this is. And that, once you're in a spaceship headed there, it's something different. I would think that the male and female thing should probably be equal, but there's all kinds of things in terms of crew selection about gender, about race, about age, about specialties. Everybody's going to have to be a pilot. Everyone's going to have to be an IT guy. There's going to have to be multiple redundancies.
Right.
One really interesting overall thing they discovered, and this was true in our simulations as well. When you're trapped in isolation, you get intensely dependent on the people around you. You come to love them and depend on them, and conflict can be very disruptive, even if you all try to, your best to be very professional. Holidays become crucial. They discovered that anything they could turn into a holiday was great for morale. And we found that too. We had Christmas in July. We celebrated everyone's birthday. We had pet fish and we celebrated their birthdays. I mean, you get to the point where you'll take anything for, something to do, something to keep your spirits up, a way to keep busy. Because it's difficult to be away from your family and your home.
Right.
And going through all these stringent protocols, no salt, no caffeine, no alcohol, no sugar, it's intense.
Wow, no sugar even. That's a lot. I was thinking about that when we first had this lockdown. I was like, well, okay, we're going to get to find out what it's like to go out to space and travel there
Yeah.
and being isolated. So very good point. You know what, Kishmore, I see your question. I really appreciate that. Happy New Year to you too. I am going to flash it on the screen a little bit later on because we do have a part that's going to address your question, and we will help you out. We'll talk to you about that too. And Heather, I'd love for you to stay and help us with those questions as well, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because you know some really cool stuff. I'm going to go on to David, so we'll get back to you, Kishmore. Thanks so much. David, he has a question. Do women do better in the tests in your experience? That's an awesome question too. Thanks, David.
It depends on the test. There's a slate of tests that are strength related. Obviously, men do fairly better in the strength related stuff. Men do better in balancing. Women do better kind of not having heart attacks. That's where we win.
So that's an issue with if you're at this angle and you said it's 6 degrees, right?
Negative 6 degrees downward. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that means your head is lower than your feet.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. I guess if it were the other way, they call it 6 degrees, like positive 6, right?
Yes, I've done that one too. That's a simulation of lunar gravity. Yeah, that one's actually, it's really funny. That one's actually tougher. You would think that being head backward is tougher, but it's not, because here, let me share my screen with you and I'll show you a picture. Let me, sharing screen. Can you see it?
I haven't been able to see it. Tell us, folks that are tuning in, can you see Heather's screen? Yeah, I was able to see it before whenever.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Oh, here, I think I have to put it there. Can you see that?
Not yet. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. Add to stream. There we go.
There. Okay. If you look here, that one little picture under where it says NASA award, that's the head degree tilt down. You can see my little head there. And then in the middle, you see me kind of typing upward on a laptop. And they give you these little springboards, to be able to type upward. And when you're in the forward one, the lunar gravity one, you can't actually do that. It's really hard to keep working. Because when I first joined this program, I still had an IT job. I was still working at my old job because I wasn't actually employed at NASA yet. I was a contractor with JES Tech, which is the employer that recruits for these programs. And then the other little picture there is they weigh you every morning to try to keep your weight the same all the way through. But yeah. Okay. But yeah, back to men and women. It also depends on almost everybody there is an athlete. So, you have to cycle to exhaustion, run to exhaustion. They do that dreaded tilt table test. We did centrifuge. Basically, mostly they just try to make you throw up a lot. That's,
far out.
I thank God I never did. I never actually threw up, not even on a centrifuge, but most people do. So.
All right. So David had another question. Really loved the questions from you, David. Took a ride in the simulator at the NASTAR Center, and he got his orbital training.
Oh, that one in Philly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, all right. And so keep me in mind for a Mars trip.
Let's go. Do you think you could handle Mars? I realized I didn't think I could handle Mars. I thought I could, but
because of the shutdown,
huh?
Because of this shutdown, or just being a pillow knot.
Well, yeah, no. After like the third simulation, you start realizing when you start realizing what's involved, just the idea that I might never see the ocean again, that you would never see a mountain with snow on it again. You would never see the color green again. You would never see a redwood tree again. Certain things that we take for granted that are in our environment all the time. And Mars, only 39% of Earth's gravity, very different. We can't reproduce. We did not evolve in that harsh environment, so we would not be able to reproduce in it. Any habitat that we put there would, until we solve the problems of keeping the biological package alive on a place where we did not evolve over millions of years, we have a long way to go in sorting out all those medical issues.
Thanks so much, Tabby. Really glad you're here, and we'll be happy to entertain you a little longer because I need to know more about the Apollo trees.
Oh,
Heather,
yeah.
please tell me about the Apollo trees. I'm thinking my first imaginary visualization of this is, wait, we're
You're putting trees on the moon? No.
yeah,
It sounds crazy, doesn't it? Yeah,
a
no.
little bit.
It's
Yeah.
an RPG project.
I see.
Yeah. Back on Apollo 14, an astronaut, he was the command service module pilot. His name was Stuart Roosa. He took a number, together with the U.S. Forestry Service, they partnered to do a science experiment, and he took a number of tree seeds into space. They were lollipop pines, sycamores, coastal redwoods, a couple other different types of species. And then they brought them back home on Earth, and they planted the quote unquote moon trees next to regular Earth developed control trees to see if orbit around the moon, being that far away from Earth, had any effect on the seeds and how the trees would grow. And most of them were planted in the kind of the mid 70s. And there's hundreds of them. There's hundreds of them all over the United States, at universities, at museums. There's a couple of international ones. And every now and then somebody will sort of trip over one. A lot of them have signs next to them that say, hey, this is an Apollo moon tree, planted during the bicentennial, because most of them were planted in 76. But the signs tend to get stolen. And so a lot of times, if you don't know where it is, NASA has a master list now, thank goodness, because they lost track of them for decades, and now we're sort of listing them. I've seen a couple of dozen of them myself, and here, I'll share another. Let me get back to another album archive. Can I share again? Is this share?
Well, I don't see it.
Yeah, you have to
Application window. Here, there we go. Okay, you see that?
Yeah, edit the stream. Okay, here we go.
Here's one.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll give you the species and who planted it. Sometimes you really got to hunt for them. Most of them are very, very healthy. Unfortunately, this one wasn't. This one's up in El Dorado Hills. And I realized earlier today when I was going through here I am hugging one of the redwoods in Humboldt. This one was really funny. I drove up to Humboldt University in Eureka, California, searching for these because they hadn't mapped them. Nobody had coordinates for this. And so I just kind of went into the registrar's office and said, does anybody know where the moon trees were? And oh my God, this 108-year-old lady came out and walked me to the trees, saying, the sign had been stolen in like 1989 or something, but she was like the only person that still knew it was there. And that's what I'm terrified, that they're going to really pass out of living memory. So I made a map, and I'll post this link later. I made a map of solar system hikes and moon trees all over the United States where, and this is a great thing to do during the pandemic. Like if you're looking for something to do, in a remote way where you can get away from people, the little suns are scale solar systems where you start at the sun and hike out the scale to Pluto. And then below I've got everything listed, and you can click on any of these in my Google map and it'll tell you the exact coordinates if you've got a smartphone, the species, when it was planted, whether it's first generation sapling or a second generation taken from an original moon tree. And so if you live anywhere close to one, those are really interesting to go see. And some of the signs have actually been replaced now that there's been kind of a resurgence of interest in this.
Oh yeah, that's a wonderful way to spend time, and to like you were saying before, to share with your children, and it's kind of feel it, the distance between places like the Earth and the Sun and the Moon and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, the scale solar systems are great for that, and I've done a bunch of these. I've got details on all of these as well. If you click on any of the suns, it'll tell you the scale how long it is, where it is, and like how long it should take you to walk. Some of them are really, really, the scale is very short because it'll be like right outside of a museum or something. The majority of them are like a mile or two. The best one, and I actually flew all the way to Maine to do this one, and they were crazy. It's an 80-mile. It starts at the sun at Presque Isle University, and it goes for 80 miles out to like dwarf planet Eris. It's incredible, and it's also got Ceres in it, and yeah,
wow.
so it's really fun. Yeah,
that's a real hike, though, isn't it?
oh my God, yeah. You need a car for some of them. There's a bunch in Europe too. The Germans love them. There's a couple of great ones in England. I think the biggest one in the world, though, is in Australia. They've got a couple that are like 200 miles. They're really massive. Yeah, this one here in, where am I? Coonabarabran. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Maybe the Australian guy who's watching can tell me if I said that right. But there's one that's literally 254 miles if you follow all of it, because it goes off in like 5 different, it goes off in 5 different ways. Here's their little page. And so if like they have a link, I usually put that in as well. So you have all the kinds of details of all the things and observatories you can do along the way. Because most of them are associated with observatories and museums, and they got grants or whatever to do them. And there's one in Hawaii as well. So yeah, it's a fun map. I had a great time making this. Unfortunately, I haven't updated it in a little while, but if people go visit them and tweet pictures at me, please, I'm at Pillowknot on Twitter, and I'd be more than happy to add anything to this map that I can. I'm always looking to update it.
And when you were talking about, going out of living memory, this is a wonderful way to basically preserve that for anyone for as long as we can access that on the internet, that kind of thing. Yeah. All right, so let's see. We've got a comment from John. Let me share that real quick. A lot of people follow and cheer on and want to be involved with the advances in space. I absolutely understand that. You're right, John. And you know what? I'm very sad that they think it's for rich guys, the government, and something you watch on Netflix. So let's see, what's the rest of this? From Mars missions to simply doing math and calculations, but NASA, SpaceX, etc. seem pretty exclusionary. How is it possible? Would you recommend average citizens and citizen scientists get involved? Excellent question, John. Thanks so much. That is what Everyday Spacer is all about. We show regular folks how to participate personally and directly in space exploration, science, and astronomy. I wrote the first of 3 books about that, and I've got 2 more on the way. So definitely stay tuned for that. I'll tell you what, I'll add a link in the chat part after this this live publishes. I can't really do it right now, but yeah, I will share that with you later. And let me go ahead and check some more. Here we go. Seth Parter has a comment for us. We know that long-term exposure to microgravity can be harmful, and 1G is good unless you step off a ledge. Here's a question for you.
You step off a ledge.
Yeah. Did the analog missions shed any light as to what the effects of levels in between might be, such as the moon or Mars at the various gravities? And Heather, why don't you take that one? That sounds wonderful for you.
Sure, absolutely. Yes. I mean, that's exactly what they're studying. What the differences will be, how long you can stay in that environment without having bone demineralization, muscle atrophy. I can't really speak to their data because, like, obviously I was present at my own tests. But as far as I know, none of the principal investigators there have actually published anything for this yet. They are still, and they're very proprietary about it. I was allowed to do specific descriptions, and I did a few interviews with scientists, and I appeared with some of the other analogs and scientists and doctors whenever we did press together. But like, they would never let me videotape when they were doing particular levels, say with particular chemical countermeasures or giving any kind of results. In fact, they don't even use your name in the studies. Everybody is assigned a number. So somewhere in NASA vaults, there's, 75 of my blood samples, labeled analog 5705. That was my particular number. And so nobody will ever know my name. And their goal really is to just get massive amounts of data. They take blood before and after from astronauts, occasionally. They're constantly looking for more analogs. The problem is, in terms of learning things across the board, is that literally there are more, this is a terrible, terrible statistic, but I feel like I have to be clear about this, of how rare it is to experience what space travel is like as an astronaut or an analog. There are more active serial killers at any given time in the United States of America than there are people who have traveled to space.
Well,
It's still
with any luck, we'll fix that in
Yeah.
the very near future. I really, really hope so.
I hope so. It's not even 600 yet. Not even 600 people have been to space yet.
Yeah,
and
it's
only
really something.
and only 100 have done this analog thing since about 1967.
Oh, wow.
So it's slow and it's hard. But yes, the good news is they've been doing it since 1967, and they've done different experiments with the kind of thing that I did: hypovolemia, lunar gravity, face forward, head down, microgravity. They've done water immersion studies, and the father of analoging is a gentleman named Dwayne Graveline. He was actually chosen to be an astronaut, I think it was Group 5, although he never flew. He became a flight surgeon for a little while. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago, but I got the chance to meet him, and we did David Livingstone's space show together, and it was great. He was knocked out. He's just like, I did these in like 1967. It's weird that I still get phone calls about it.
Oh, wow.
But yeah,
when were you participating?
Necessary. I started screening in 2008, and my 3 sims were 2008, 9, and 10. And then from 2010 to 2015, I worked for them as a recruiter and a marketer and a press liaison.
Oh, very cool. You know what? Seth Potter had a comment: join National Space Society. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
I did mention that in my book. And also, Seth has another question here. He says, whether even though the variable G question has not gotten to the point of publishing results, it's good to know it's being considered. Otherwise, we won't know if we can live on Mars long term once we get there. There are a lot of issues. I think we're gonna have to solve a lot of problems and be very innovative and creative when it comes to staying out there. I think a lot of us want to go, but it's gonna be a big challenge. We just got another question in from Jack Ruza. Thanks so much.
Oh, Jack! Oh my gosh! Oh, that's Stuart's son. Hi, Jack. Cool. Yes. Oh, we're buds on Facebook. That's fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad you saw my map. How wonderful. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Thanks for joining us, Jack. Really appreciate that.
Cool.
So, anything else you want to share with us about either the Pilonaut process, the Apollo moon trees, or your space maps at this point, Heather? And we got to have you back. You've done so many cool things. We definitely want to have you come back to the show at some point. And I'm always looking for people too. So if you or anybody has somebody who's really good at I mean, you've made some really cool projects that you created for yourself, and I think that's an incredible way to participate. I really applaud you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my citizen science mostly revolves around space trivia, and I hear this is what's hardest for me about the pandemic. I love traveling. I set myself the goal of seeing all 50 states before I was 50, which I actually finished 6 years early. And that was part of my documenting moon trees, space capsules, solar system walks, space museums. I also, if you go onto my space maps page, I've mapped out every space agency in the world, every space museum in the world, every Apollo capsule, Gemini capsule, Mercury capsule, and space shuttle. the moon trees. So yeah, definitely go check that out. I'm a well of space trivia, and I think the moon trees and the scale solar system, the orrery hikes, are the best way to get kids involved. And even if you feel like, oh, NASA's exclusionary and I can't get into something, you know what, if you take your kid on a hike and teach them about the scale of, you know, the sun to Pluto, or how far out, you know, that if Mercury's 12 inches away from the sun and Saturn is a 3-mile walk, you know, you've impressed upon them how much empty space there is out there. You are doing citizen science. You are supporting space exploration.
Absolutely. You get a real feel for it, like on a cellular level.
And in a realistic way, not a Star Wars, Star Trek way. Don't get me wrong. I love Star Trek. I just got my boyfriend gave me this for Christmas. And so, yeah.
Very nice.
I love it.
A new question in from Daniel. Daniel is one of our neighbors here. Do you think library Earth globes should have scale model moons 30 globe diameters away to give kind of overview effect? Ooh, that's an interesting question. I don't know if you can answer that, Heather, but give it a shot.
I don't actually know that reference. Library Earth globes?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't either. Daniel, would you care to elaborate on that for us, please?
Is that something in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I don't know either, Heather. We're gonna see if Daniel will tell us. Yeah, a little bit more about that. And you said you'd be willing to share with us links where people can find you if they would like to know more. And that's going to be available. I think you can actually, if you can type into the chat, that will go out to some of these, and we can share to the rest. I have about 11 different places that I post to nowadays.
Sure.
Okay, Daniel came back. He said that public libraries have them. Okay, so public libraries have a globe of the Earth, I take it.
Oh, I see. He wants to know if, like, you put a globe of the Earth in the lobby, the moon should be over in the fiction section 30 feet away to display the scale. Yes, that's fantastic. I wish every library did that.
That's a pretty cool idea, actually.
Yeah, that is. Actually, the best one that I can think of that, and this is going to sound weird, I've walked part of the scale solar system at the Carl Sagan Science Center in Ithaca, New York, but I haven't finished it yet because the sun is at the Science Center. And then you walk about a mile or two, it's about 2 miles through town to get to Pluto. And the scale ends with the Centauri star in Hilo, Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Both of those science centers partnered up to make that all one scale solar system. So I still have to go back to Hawaii to see that Alpha Centauri, or not Alpha Centauri, possibly, I think it's Proxima Centauri.
Proxima Centauri is the closest.
The closest star. But if you're standing in Ithaca, New York at our sun, and you think to yourself, okay, Proxima Centauri is on the big island of Hawaii, that was one of the, you know, and that, what is that, like about a 10-hour flight, 11-hour flight?
I don't even know.
Yeah. So now you try to make that into scale. It's real, it works on your brain for a little bit. But yeah, that'd be great if public libraries did that with the moon, because that's the easiest one. The moon only takes like about 3 days to get to. Mars, even when it's at its closest point, takes 180 days to get to at the same speed. So, and that's minimum. That's when it's at its closest point and everything is, you know, all favorable conditions. So.
All right. So go ahead and share with us where people can find out more if they would like to know. And I forgot to say this before, if you want to ask us any questions directly, it's 1-805-590-6356. It's been a long show. I think I'm going to basically just go into the next segment, and we will get to the question from Kishmore as well when that part comes up. Thanks so much for your patience. I really appreciate that. So yeah, go ahead, Jeff. He's got the next segment for us.
Okay. What you can see in the night sky this week, January 1st through January 8th. The moon is 18 days old today. Not on January 8th. Third quarter moon is Wednesday, January 6th.
Right, yes. And you can actually still see Mars and Saturn and Jupiter in the night sky. You want to go out early though, like pretty much as soon as it gets dark. I like to play a little game and see how early can I see things. Like Mars and Jupiter, very good to see early. And I highly recommend trying to see them because, the sky is still pretty light. And you think, oh, there's no way you can see anything like that, but you can see the planets. Mars, Jupiter, Venus, they're all really bright. And so those are really good ones to see, and try to challenge yourself for as early as you can see them. And then, of course, we've got Jupiter and Saturn. They're still fairly close together, but they are drifting apart each night. I've been trying to take some photographs to put together kind of a compilation and see how fast that moves. I remember I was out taking pictures, and you don't notice when you're taking the pictures, but I'm like scanning through them. I'm like, oh my God, this is only like 3 seconds apart, and it's moving. You can see it moving. It's like really wild. But yeah, Mars is high in the sky really early in the evening. Saturn and Jupiter are way west, and they're going to set really early now. So definitely keep a lookout for those as early as you can possibly see them.
Okay, January 2nd, Earth is closest to the sun at perihelion. And January 3rd, the International Space Station evening passes over Thousand Oaks. Do you do station spotting? I mean, do you look for the ISS when it's flying over?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Heather.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You flashed Kishore on the screen, so I was wondering if you were actually talking to somebody in the comments. Yes, my eyesight isn't that great. We have 3 different telescopes. I've spotted it a couple of times with binoculars, but with the naked eye, I'm not so great. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if we get really serious, we drive up past Placerville toward the Kirkwood area, and we'll set the big telescope up and look for clusters and different stars and things like that.
Oh, very cool. Sometimes space station's really bright, like right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead and finish that part.
Okay. Yeah. The 3rd, the 9th.
That's the range.
3rd to 9th are have a number of passes, with the 6th being the best pass at the brightest. I think that's like a negative 3.9.
Yeah, something like that.
And it's in the evening, early Sunday. And the reason why the space station is so bright is because if you figure that your fist is the Earth, and the sun is over here, there's a shadow here where you're on the past the edge of the Earth, so you're in shadow, but the space station is still above it, reflecting light down on you from the sun. And
that's why we can see the space station. So before I forget, hi, this is Kishore from India, Bangalore. Thanks so much for joining us, and Happy New Year. The question is, why is Jupiter so large and gaseous? You know what? I'm gonna talk to you about that. Jeff seems to be able to remember details. And Heather, if you've got anything on that too, please let's get that answered before we move on.
Well,
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, answering the second part first, it's gaseous theoretically, and they've changed their minds on a few details, but theoretically, the farther out a planet develops, the smaller the molecules that it gathers. And hydrogen and helium are the smallest and lightest molecules, and they're out there because any planets that are near the sun will have those blown away from it by the solar wind. Or especially when the sun ignited, it just blew a bunch of stuff out. So all of the light stuff is out there, and it just collects it for a long time. And basically, it's the case of the big get bigger. The bigger you are, the more you collect, and the bigger you are, the bigger you get, the more you collect. And so Jupiter is the biggest planet. Saturn's the second, pretty much the same sort of planet. And it's just basically a ball of gas with whatever else it collected too. and it's just big because there's a lot there.
Very cool. You know, we got a couple questions that came in. I'm going to go ahead and share with you from Seth Potter. Another way for the public to participate in space is to get an amateur radio license and join a local club. You might meet someone involved in amateur radio on the International Space Station. Yeah, I have heard people that talk to them. Not an easy thing for an individual. It's done more as a STEM outreach activity, right? And it has to be arranged in advance with NASA, but there is now an amateur repeater. Oh, on the space station. Cool. Yeah. You won't necessarily, I didn't know that. Thanks so much, Seth. You won't necessarily talk to astronauts that way, but you will be speaking to others on Earth via an International Space Station relay. That is awesome. I actually did put into my book, Build a Radio Telescope. So that's in there. And I'm going to share Michael's too, because we got to encourage Michael to come on our show, because this is so cool. I took a zero gravity flight about 20 years ago. And do you know if they are still offered? I have been having trouble Googling it. Michael, I do know something about this. I get emails from them all the time. It's a company called Zero G, just like that. It was started by Dr. Peter Diamandis. I do think he has handed it off at this point. I don't think he's actually part of it, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. If anybody knows about that, Heather or any of our viewers tonight, love to get an update on that. That's just what I think from what I've seen. And it's a phenomenal program, though. You get to go up and they do the parabolic loops, and you have a simulation of microgravity. Even Dr. Stephen Hawking got a chance to ride the vomit comet as it's
vomit comet. Yeah, that's what I always think. I got an invitation to do that, but after doing the centrifuge and tilt table tests like 13 times, I was like, nah. I had enough.
Got it. All right. So we got one more from Daniel. Let's see what Daniel shares with us. There's even an EME moon bounce mode in amateur radio 07. Right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Oh, and Seth has, yeah, he came on and said that the same thing too. All right, let me go ahead and continue on with our update on what you can see this week. The Coranted meteor shower has, basically it's a range, the 27th of December to the 1st of January. And
10th of January.
Sorry, 10th of January. Sorry. Yes, thank you. And they have a peak night. And this is kind of when you'll be able to see most of them at their most frequent. That's going to be January 3rd into the 4th. That's Sunday night into Monday morning. The best time to see these is after midnight. They appear to be radiating from Draco, which is in the northeast, but you can see them anywhere in the sky. And these are going to be about 25 to 100 per hour, typically. And of course, some years are different. And, you know, you want to go out and check it out because, hey, you might actually catch a really good year. And I've heard that's actually called a meteor storm when it just like rain. It looks like it's raining. And they're basically just little tiny specks of dust that fall into our atmosphere. The source is 203 EH1. I don't actually know what that is. Most of these are because a comet went past and it left a trail of debris. And so you can, you know, see the effect of that when those pieces of dust come into our atmosphere and the friction they cause interacting with our atmosphere lights them up for us. Yeah, you're welcome, Kishore. Yeah, great. Yeah, you're very welcome, and you stay safe too. I really appreciate you joining us from India. That's so cool. All right, so the problem with this particular meteor shower is that the moon might interfere. I think it's going to be a pretty big moon still, especially like after midnight. And that's kind of a problem when you have a meteor shower. You kind of want to think in terms of, can I also, am I also going to have a big moon in the way? That's kind of the deal there. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, January 4th, Mercury and Pluto are in conjunction. You'll need a telescope to see Pluto. You'll need a really big telescope to see Pluto.
Yeah, I don't actually know, but I don't think it's a naked eye object. That's the point with that one.
It needs a Mount Wilson type telescope.
Maybe,
to see
yeah.
Pluto.
But the thing about an object like Mercury, which is pretty bright, is it kind of helps you and serves as something of a guidepost to find planets that are less bright like Pluto. We did get a couple more questions in. All right, let's see what we got here. David, okay, the big one. Is the new administration going to cut back on science? We don't really know. What is the thinking in the U.S. at the moment? My thinking is, let's give it all to commercial space. And, NASA can do way cool stuff that nobody can touch now. But I think the rest of us should try and go commercial. All right, we have one more here from Michael. Thanks so much. What's going wrong? Zero G. Okay.
Fashion accessories. That explains it.
Yeah. Just look for Zero G. I think you'll find the company just fine. All right, so let's see. January 6th is the weekly space hangout. I do not happen to be on the show this week, but they pretty much have them every Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I am going to be on one. I better get the date. Sorry, I usually have that for people. Heather, I think we should talk to them about getting you on the show too. I think that'd be really fun.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I don't know what their policy is, but I did get an invite, so I'll say, hey, are you ever looking for new people?
Sure.
And we'll see if we can enter your name into that.
Yes.
All right, you got.
Okay.
We have many hours to fill these days.
Yeah. January 8th is our next Friday night show. We'll be back next week. It's to repeat January 8th, but I already said that.
Yeah. All right, we got one more from Daniel. How close are we to closed life support systems? Heather, is that a question you can answer?
Yes. In fact, one of the newest and greatest experiments going on at Johnson Space Center now is Hera, which is the Mars habitat, and they consistently recruit to do crews for that as well, to do analog simulations. Of course, they've stopped for the pandemic, but that's another link that I usually have on the front of my website, pillowknot.com. Anytime there's a new protocol or a new study, I put that on the very front so that people know where the application is and can go. That one, actually, I forget who asked. That one you do need a STEM degree. You have to have a specific kind of mission specialist skill. And part of it is psychological, part of it is isolation testing, and part of it is crew selection. Like closed habitats where they do experiments and they're growing things is, I think, going to be sort of the next generation. Mars 500 did a little bit of that as well, with some hydroponics and things like that, and stored food and things like that. But we are not anywhere near a genuine closed life support system. That's also very far off into the future, if somebody wants to remind Elon Musk of that.
Outside of Earth, I think Earth is okay, but
Earth is fine. Well, we're not really a closed system, though. I mean, we interact with all kinds of things. In fact, we interact with the gravity of Jupiter, and we interact with the energy of the sun. So we're not necessarily closed.
That's true.
There's
Power source.
That's true. The largest closed life support system experiment, I'm sure some people have heard, and you can Google this. It was called Biosphere 2. And you can still go visit it. It's a tourist attraction now. It's in Oracle, Arizona, which is a little bit south of Phoenix. And I've been there twice. And it's a sad story, but kind of a famous one. What a spectacular failure that was. And so it's worth keeping in mind. And again, I don't want to be too negative, but it's worth keeping in mind. We couldn't make a closed life support system work on Earth yet. So doing it on Mars, getting all that material there and trying it there is a huge risk and a huge cost, and we're years away from that, if not decades. Yeah. They need to do it on Earth first. They've tried twice at Biosphere 2, but neither one has worked.
And I think they learned a whole lot from Biosphere 2, though. Yes. And I think you had a comment, Jeff?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It just seems to me that the one thing that they didn't test was testing mechanical life support in conjunction with biological life support, because they were just doing biological life support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the concrete was a big problem for them. And actually, what did it do? It outgassed
a lot of
carbon dioxide.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Heather, you had a comment. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, they also, when they, did that project, didn't know as much about crew selection and how we approach that now. They kind of did it with, let's, kind of like a Biodome Pauly Shore movie. Let's put all these people in a habitat and see what happens. And
Well,
it's there's so much more involved.
well, it was space hippies.
What? Oh,
Space
space hippies.
Space hippies. Yes, that's
I
basically
saw that episode of Star Trek. All right, so
very
let's see.
true.
We got another question from Kishmore. Thanks so much for asking. Why are auroras? I think are not visible in parts of Asia. It's only visible in the North Pole. And I would love to watch auroras, but it's not visible in India. I think it's just too far south. Is the issue
too
there?
Too close to the equator, because South Pole gets them too.
Yes,
and it's
that's
because the Earth is here. We have magnetic field going in and out of the poles. That's why they're the. Yeah, that's why compasses work. The thing is that charged particles follow that magnetic lines, and so they come into the pole through the atmosphere. So the farther away from the pole you are, the fewer of those charged particles are coming through the air, and that's what you're seeing in the auroras. It's essentially a neon tube in the sky.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I've actually seen them from Conneaut, Ohio, which is pretty darn far south for an aurora. And it wasn't anything like the spectacular pictures that you see and the descriptions people. It was just like, oh, I think that's an aurora because it was kind of greenish.
Yeah, well, in Michigan, we'd have a white haze.
Yeah, right. All right, Seth Potter has another thing. Would an 80% solution or even a 50% solution of the closed ecological life support system be feasible in the near term? Ooh, that's a really good question. Is that something you can handle, Heather?
I don't know exact percentages. I think the Mars 500, they did have a percentage of that of what they expected, and it was pretty close to 80%.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, right. they were shut up away from their families for 500 days, and
wow.
They even accounted for every distance that they were at. Like, the simulation was very complete. They were completely shut up, nobody in or out. But I think I'd have to go back and look at the schematics of their habitat. I wrote about it on my blog, and I actually wrote about it for a book that they did on simulations and space experiments a couple of years ago. They did have a couple of supply things in and out, but even when they were, like, say they were scheduled to be halfway to Mars, they would even do the communications at the specific lag that it would have taken voices and signals to go back and forth. They accounted for everything like that. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of experiments that account for that kind of thing and get close percentage wise. We're just not at 100. We're not going to risk anybody's life to try it.
Yeah, boy, that's really cool that they would even simulate the lag time, because that's a big factor.
Yeah.
That's a really big factor. All right, so we do have, I'm just going to kind of wrap it up here. We've been on for a long time. Thanks so much, everybody. Heather, you've been wonderful. I really appreciate your time, and I'm really looking forward to having you come back and tell us even more about the stuff you've done. We do have one more guest on the schedule right now. That is Christina's friend, Sam Nordrum. He will be joining us on January 22nd. We have a few pending, including Seth Potter, and we will definitely be asking some folks back. We've had David here. We've had Heather now. We've had Christina. She was on the chat earlier. And we definitely want to talk to more people. If you or anybody you know is, doing something interesting like Heather or any of the folks we've already talked to, we would love to share our program with you. And then, Jeff, you've got the next one?
Yeah. When we don't have a guest, we'll be sharing various citizen science things that you can do, like Heather has done here with her maps, and like SETI at Home used to be, but there's new stuff out there called Zooniverse and imagery constructions. So we'll be discussing those over various weeks too.
Yeah, very cool. I got a whole list. Thanks so much, Kishore. I really appreciate that. And so, like I said, if you or someone you know has something interesting going on that involves space exploration, science, astronomy, we would love to share our live. We are, please join us again next Friday for it's going to be the beginning of our citizen science series. If we don't get another guest by then, like I said, Sam will be here on the 22nd. In between, when we have a guest, we're going to start bringing out these different activities. And Heather, you've provided some incredible examples of what is possible for regular folks. And, if you've got an idea of people, absolutely try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. The world is better for the maps that Heather has provided us, and they're going to laugh well beyond, her time on Earth, I'm sure.
I hope so. Yeah. I realized I can't put something in the comment section. So maybe if you put it on your Facebook page, I'm going to go to bed as soon as we're done here because it's way past my bedtime. But follow me on Twitter, and I'll post all the links that we talked about on Twitter tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
And tell me what it is again. Heather is at what is it at?
It's just at Pillow Knot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, and let's. Can I share
a W in there?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I spelled it wrong.
That's okay. That's what my phone does too. It always auto corrects it to something else. But yeah, it's pillow with a W.
Yeah, it's my eyes. I can't see what I'm typing. Pillow Knot. PILLOW NAUT. And yeah, we'll share more in the comments too. After this is published. Thanks so much, Heather. We're gonna have you back.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, I'd love to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All righty. Good night, everybody.
Good night.